Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Monday, July 13th, 2026, and I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel this Monday. What an incredible weekend, such intense times. We're going to jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Wow. Okay, so what a weekend. Nothing kind of screams more of a giant turn of the tides than the sky falling on Lindsey Graham and him meeting his maker. Perhaps he's in some deep underground bunker. We haven't seen a body. We don't know exactly what's going on, but the signs are pointing to hugely a massive, massive turnaround in what's happening here in geopolitics, especially with Ukraine, Russia. And we're going to be getting into it here in this video. And I'm going to start with a couple other things first, as I like to do. We also have, of course, tomorrow's Bastille Day. The DSA communists are about to unleash their new massive doctrine of what they aim to do to destroy the United States, completely decimating everything about our constitutional republic. I'll get into that as well, and many other things besides. There's so much behind the scenes here connected to this Lindsey Graham death being reported, and so we're going to jump heavily into that, but so many other things. First of all, I always start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thanks to everybody supporting monthly. I hope you were able to watch my great interview with Pastor Jeff last Thursday. So great. And I want to let everybody know about this great book, Revolution by Eric Metaxas. This book is, if you want to be inspired, this is the book to get. And it's also the book to share with your family, friends, and community. Do a book group, whatever you want to do. But this is a fantastic book to really rev you up. Great, just so well written, so intelligently, with such great language, and just a great vocabulary. So it kind of lifts you up into a higher realm. But his analysis, the way he lifts up the stories of the people, John Adams, Samuel Adams, George Washington, everyone, into what happened here to make this republic is amazing. So I'll link his, and you can also go watch him speak. He's speaking at numerous churches around the country right now, as well as other venues. And so look in the description below, and on his website, you can find out where he's speaking, etc. And I have nothing to do with it, just inspired by it, and so wanted to let you know. But I also wanted to report something here about a real amazing veteran, not veteran from the military, veteran investigative journalist who did so much heavy lifting to expose Big Med and their crimes against humanity way back into the 80s. And this is John Rappaport. John Rappaport has moved to heaven. John Rappaport has gained eternal life, and he has moved on. And I'm going to link below his final message. And he's been writing on Substacks this many years. For a few years, he was on the InfoWars channel. Sometimes he would come up and do incredible exposés. This was long before Maha became a thing, but greatly due to him. He preceded all of our incredible heroes now in the expose the iatrogenic medicine a genocide that goes on constantly since Rockefeller brought synthetic medicine into existence. And Rappaport was just such an incredible man, incredible reporter, and just want to honor him in his life. So anyway, I'll link his Substack. You can read all of his things there. The executor of his estate is going to keep putting up articles that he had written but not published yet. And I just urge you to do that and to have a look at John Rappaport if you're not familiar with him. And so, okay, today is the second anniversary, of course, of Butler, right? As we're seeing, the expose in the Kirk trials of Robinson and Twiggs and this handler and puppet situation between the two of them, and all of this setup of them is in this, for entertainment purposes only channel, that basically, this cover story that they're continuing on with that preliminary trial. I'm not going to report on it here too much because it kind of it's all over. Everybody else talked about it so much last week. But I also want to say, please pray for Patrick Byrne. Pray for Patrick Byrne. I think it was today that Hunter Biden, won a lawsuit against Patrick Byrne, but Patrick Byrne's health seems to be really under attack. And so I want to pray for him because he has done so much to expose the election steal crimes and across the world, and everything from the Serbian servers to the Venezuelan, kingpins involved, everything to do with the machines. And Patrick Byrne has spent his overstock millions, just tons and tons of millions on gaining what is coming this week. That MS Now, MSNBC seem to get some leaks from the White House. Was that done purposely as they frame a narrative to already say that all of this declassed national intelligence documents that are going to be presented? We have Trump, who is going to speak on this today and now postponed it to Thursday, where he's actually going to be doing an address to the nation, I believe Thursday night. So this is huge, an address to the nation, said to be connected to what is the election crimes. And this gets into the international sphere that Patrick Byrne delivered so much goods on, and of course the hundreds of people involved in exposing this. And now we have Bill Pulte in there, working to get all the documentation that came out of Gabbard's digging to the team out of the White House that is the special counsel team that is working on these D-class materials with John Solomon, so many others connected to, of course, what are these cases in Fort Pierce, Florida, and what's coming in the Southern District of New York with McDonald, who we want in there. If they're going to try to push Pulte out in these next, with the Senate now back in, Thune looking very nervous with Graham dead, right? Thune looking very nervous. We need Graham out. We need Mike Lee as the head of the Senate. 202-224-3121 for your senator. And of course, for what's coming to replace Lindsey Graham, we already have Darlene, his sister, being put in there. You got to wonder if she's wearing boots a lot. She had a little ankle bracelet on there because Graham was being massively investigated for all of his embezzlement of, took the picture of me, of what was the Ukraine embezzlement operation, why he celebrated Biden stealing the election in 2020, why he was on Team Biden was financial, just as he had been McCain's successor to the Maidan coup, moving forward for the Prussians and the Frankists, etc., to go ahead and try to create World War III with Russia while stealing as much of the taxpayer money as possible and more, plus, of course, the planned demolition of America. And so while we look at this happening, it's all happening right now, right after the NATO meetup. And there's so much besides. So I could go on my little rant here for a long time, and I know I just kind of abruptly stopped it, but only 27 votes needed to get Thune out as leader. But as we look at this, let's just jump in. Should we jump in with Graham first, or will I? 202-224-3121 for Senate and 2321 for Thune. Of course, this is Thune, fire the parliamentarian immediately. We had McConnell put up his proof of life, not McConnell, whoever is his operations team, putting up proof of life, AI fake photo, the newspaper, right? I'm fine. I can't wait to get back to Senate, right? Yeah, baloney. So the McConnell holdout with trying to push past, April 3rd, what's going on with the Senate, with what they're going to decide to do with these, these precious few days. And Mike Lee saying, hey, we don't have to we can work weekends and we don't have to have an August vacation. Mike Lee saying we can actually decide to cancel that vacation and get this massive, massive work that has to be done. Because what's going to be coming out is huge information to the public around the election crimes and the ongoing uh, uh, taking apart of the apparatus and what that means going forward. So let's see where I'll start. I think I will just dive in with Graham here, and I'll get to on Bastille Day tomorrow, which is the 14th of July. That is, of course, the annual anniversary of the French Revolution, where they did not have liberty. They didn't have Christianity because they were uh, Jacobins and Frankists. They were very anti-Christian, and the movement behind it was very, very secret society run, very Masonically run, but also into the Frankists, hugely into a satanic crowd, and of course massively funded in the whole Rothschild area of the banksters to overthrow the monarchy. But they did not have Christianity in there, so they had no framework for what was creating a society based on liberty. It became chop off everyone's head and then just eat your own until everyone's dead, right? And then there's mayhem and nothing comes of it. And of course, look at France today, although we did have Le Pen being able to, Le Pen did win her case. She is now able to run for president next year, and she plans to, and she's way ahead of in the polls above anybody else, and especially Macron. So Marine Le Pen is up again and now fighting to have her whole criminal case against her dismantled, which of course all of this money fraud that supposedly it was based on had to do with Brussels. It had to do with the office in Brussels with a staff that she barely knew running some sort of campaign behind the scenes against her. And of course, Brussels is going to come up a lot in the next few minutes, because when we look at this with Graham and how he was in Turkey with Trump, and how there was the NATO meeting, and at that meeting, huge things shifted. And a lot of this, I believe the shift had to do with the USA, what had to do with Trump and Zelensky's meeting, where there was a shift saying America's going to come in and basically take over from the European control here. We're going to take over from the international bankster control, the Israeli control. We're going to take over what's going on in Ukraine. And we're going to take out the whole Prussian influence, these Trotskyites that have run since the Maidan coup. We are going to now ensure that Ukraine actually becomes a country that isn't a threat to us anymore and isn't stealing from us anymore. And these Patriot missiles that we're going to give you a license for, if we bring in Patriot missiles, it's going to be because America's running them actually to protect Ukraine from being overrun by the NATO, EU, European International. Okay, it's going to stop this conflict from moving forward, and that the USA will be very involved in that. And a huge turn of the tides, because what happened today, one day after Lindsey Graham is dead, we have the Prime Minister being told to get out of Ukraine, not out of Ukraine, but to step down from office. There's going to be a new Prime Minister put in. As I've said in my last week video, there are elections being said to come for the fall, meaning they're planning for an end to this war by the fall. And what we're seeing here is the Prime Minister stepping down. So let me get to that actual information. There's so much, and I know that I'm kind of condensing it and jamming it in here, but let's get to this where we're talking about these specific people. We have, give me one moment while I find the names of the people involved here. Pretty important. Yeah. So the Prime Minister, Yulia Vyrodenko. Okay, only been the Prime Minister for a year, and and she's going to be now the new U.S. envoy. Okay, she's going to replace who was Olga Stefanishina. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but Olga Stefanishina has been the U.S. And the Ukraine envoy to the U.S. And she came directly out of being former deputy prime minister for European affairs and integration of Ukraine into the EU. That was her job. And so she went from there to being this person constantly trying to coerce the USA with the likes of Lindsey Graham, okay, into how we get Ukraine into NATO, how we get more money for the Ukraine war, how we constantly support this Ukraine war narrative, and keep the money, the cash cow going, how to keep the billions flowing, and how that's been. Lindsey Graham was under huge investigation for huge money laundering to do with Ukraine for entertainment purposes only. And there was so many others. Okay, the kickbacks. I mean, think of, it was also Coombs, right? Biden's number one senator. They both had private apartments that were in Kiev, right? That apartment building apparently was blown up, supposedly by Russia, okay, over the weekend at the same time, just after supposedly Graham leaves Ukraine and is dead. And so we get the apartment buildings that were on taxpayer dollar, paid for, and then that's gone. So the evidence, whatever was going down in those apartments, are gone, both of them, right? We had Shaheen, a Democrat out of New Hampshire, traveling to Ukraine with Graham. Very interesting. And so, okay, but stay focused. So we have Yulia Sviridenko stepping down, only there for a year. She is now going to be the envoy to the USA from Ukraine. And so there's something in her that Trump is wanting, okay, that the Trump team is saying, we want her, we want to speak through her. We want to talk to her. And this is after getting rid of the woman who was the Graham, the Graham whisperer, but also the one run by Graham. And Graham is the McCain inheritor of the Maidan coup, Trotskyite cash cow of the garbage disposal of Europe, that is Ukraine, right? And so what we're seeing here is this whole new push, and the reason is that we have so the prime minister stepping down. We don't know who the new prime minister is going to be yet, as far as right now while I'm doing this video. But they called out Olga Stefanishina, who was the envoy. They forced her to quit over some kind of real estate steal that she did with an apartment in Kiev she was able to buy for less than a third of the cost of what it was worth. And that was the excuse to say you have to step down as envoy. The prime minister steps down, and now that prime minister is now the envoy to the USA. And this is as the elections are supposed to come this fall. And of course, Zaluzhny is the ex director of commander of the military, who is now the ambassador to the UK, that the UK is pushing so hard for to be the next Zelensky, to be the next president of Ukraine. But that's not really what the people want. The people want different things. And so the people in Ukraine are actually also fighting back hugely recently, where you're having people on the streets attacking the bands that are coming to still try to steal people off the streets to throw them on the front lines to fight the war, even though Zelensky at NATO was like, oh, this is totally an air war. It's only an air war. It's all drones now. We hardly need people anymore. And while that's hugely true, they absolutely do. They need those front lines held by somebody, right? And another thing that has happened at the same time here. So we had, of course, we have Graham in Turkey, right? We have the huge meetup here with, of course, Erdogan. Part of what Erdogan wants is this Black Sea access of control for Turkey. That in the new agreements with USA, Ukraine, Turkey, that that Turkey wants a Black Sea both access for some of the energy, out of the Black Sea, and also control of part of the trade in the Black Sea. So that's a huge thing that's going down here as well as the military aspects of the F-35s and the Patriot missiles to Ukraine. This is the USA exporting a well, it is taking down Cartel Babylon, Cartel Global, and basically saying we're going to create these bilateral trade agreements that are going to decimate this Fifth Reich, whatever you want to call it, globalist bankster elite cabal control everywhere it's operating. And so one really quiet thing happened at the same time as Trump's death threat, potential assassination attempt with what happened with the Qatari Air Force One new plane, where he said, "I'm not going to fly black on that plane." And of course, there were all the signals that came through that the threat had come out of Belgium, out of Brussels, right? And of course, Belgium was huge, screaming and yelling at Trump with everything to do with Greenland, even though it's Denmark that the Danes run Greenland. But of course, they're all the same in those old bankster families that also ran the money for the Nazi regime that continue to push Gladio style all of the whether it's Iran or all the proxy wars going on and proxy control. And so this is what is going down. And so there had also been a threat on Putin's life at the same exact time as this situation with Trump. And this has been very quiet, but Putin had, he's been dealing with huge coup operations to slap down in Russia. And Putin is loved by the Russian people. Putin is their leader of choice. And there is, this constant deep state attempt to get in there and to unravel his control over the military and his government. And there's been coup attempt things going on since March of this year as they've been pushing this forward. Hence why you're seeing more and more boldness on the end of the EU. Well, we'll just leverage our economies. We'll just go into full debt. We'll just demolish our countries like we did to the United States and go full bore into this because they think they have leverage inside of Russia. And something happened in this last week that was apparently some kind of coup assassination attempt with Putin. And so this is at the same time as the most recent, NATO flight home warning for Trump. And then Lindsey Graham flies from Turkey straight to Ukraine, of course, to basically, get the money, right? Got to secure the money, got to finish the job here because everything's changing. Got to make sure that you are, you're cleaning up your messes and that the money thing is still, already set, right? And so this is, very important as you see a giant shift here, a giant shift in control of who's going to be calling the shots, re Ukraine and the end of the war, which is Trump and the Trump team and the America First crowd that also has other global players. And so as we look at this and you see Putin coming out a couple of days later or just even the next day with Sergei Lavrov as well, his foreign minister, and saying, what the heck, West, you are, this is enough, enough of you just hugely threatening Russia and threatening me and threatening everybody. Like I'm done, I'm over it. And just calling out saying, no more Mr. Nice Guy by Russia. And so I think we'll see, some escalations of hits, probably to take out a lot of evidence, whether it's Ukraine, FFs, or Russia, going full bore, because we do have the Skyfall drone facility where Graham went and toured right before he, met the maker, got the Grim Reaper, with his phone with pictures and photos, right? And basically being tracked all the time. And so he's at the Skyfall drone facility, and then later we get both of those places, that facility being boomed, and the apartment complex where he had his apartment boomed, and then supposedly takes the 10-hour train ride or whatever. We don't know his travel arrangements yet, and then he is dematerialized. He's gone. There's no body. So when you think of like John Bolton and you think of the investigations going deep into the money steals that are going on, it is really important to understand that we're dealing with the change of the tides. The things are moving forward faster now for the flip to happen, where we can now say, okay, things are actually we've crossed the Rubicon on the domination of cartel Babylon, and that's part of what's happening now. And so, well, we see this with the really, it's really quite, if the sky did fall on Graham, meaning still over there, or whatever happened to him, it's so apt a way to go, considering the intense, disgusting, his calls for all of the soldiers to go, fight in Ukraine, fight in Iran, all of his for his own gain. And one thing that was also very interesting here is Netanyahu coming out, of course, immediately, like Netanyahu always does after someone important dies, right? On the cell phone, right? But we have Netanyahu coming out and saying, "Oh, Lindsey is such a great guy. I loved him." And by the way, again, pushing his NDAA 224, right? Fuse America with Israel. But something happened, and he kind of messaged this in his talking about Lindsey Graham, where he says, he was such a great friend, just loved Israel, meaning on the super take from Israel, from U.S. money going to Israel for years and years, huge amounts of money coming to Lindsey Graham, and when they won't need it anymore if they fuse through 224 and then the SIAA, the Senate Intelligence. Their SIAA, the Senate Intelligence Act, where they get all their money in there, where it basically fuses the Senate intelligence will fuse all of the intelligence of the USA with Israel as well. Okay, so that's just Israel having direct access to not what we tell them, but into all of the electronics, into all the codes, into it'll just be the same. It'd be like going to the Pentagon, it's just going to Mossad. And so that is what is going on here. And so Netanyahu is just saying, Lindsey, we just don't need you anymore. We don't need you anymore. We have grown up. We're now a fully mature adult nation in Israel. We don't need your money anymore. We don't need any of this from you. And he said Lindsey just would not have it. He wouldn't accept that I was saying that, we don't need your money. We don't need more money from the USA, meaning we're not going to keep paying you. You're being cut off. We've moved past you into direct fusion with this NDAA, the appropriations bills coming up in the SIAA, and we're in like Flynn. We don't need you. We got more money coming out of our ears, and we're not going to keep paying all you people who just seem to it's not good for us anymore. We need to go underground. We need to go fully more into our Mossad. By deception, we will do war, right? We just want direct access so that everything can be on the hush, and we just make billions by putting our tentacles into every military and intelligence thing going on in the USA. And so another thing said out loud by Netanyahu, coming out and saying that right on, I don't know, was it Fox, some mainstream news channel. And so this is very interesting to see all of these interconnections happening all in this intense, 5-day period where the attempted, threat against Trump, the the communications about that seeming very related to Belgium, to Brussels, Antwerp, this whole situation of his plane circling around Antwerp when it left, after it left Turkey. This, Graham fleeing to Ukraine immediately. Huge decisions and huge pivots were made at this NATO meeting, and a total ownership by Trump of what's going to be going down with Ukraine and NATO to do with Ukraine. And so, yeah, we might leave that there for now. And so, quick mention here of McConnell with his, fake proof of life photo is, of course, we have Massey coming in with his bill, which is called Three Strokes and You're Out, Three Strokes and You're Out bill, basically saying that if there are congressmen, senators that are consistently disabled, that have constant health ailments that make them unable to participate in their duties in Congress, that they need to be removed, and that is Thomas Massey. And of course, the whole, the talks here for a week or so is that, they're trying to, have this proof of life of McConnell until after August 3rd, so they can, appoint somebody new rather than have a runoff election or a special election that Thomas Massey could try to get in on. And also, of course, when we look at Graham, you have the great Mark Lynch, who came in second. Graham spent $50 million. He who never spends time in South Carolina, $50 million to defeat Mark Lynch, who is he made his fortune in appliance with an appliance company out of South Carolina, Christian, self-made man, regularly saying that Lindsey Graham is a treasonous, belongs in prison. And so he can run now again. But now you've got Nancy Mace and Ralph Norman, the representatives, both saying, oh, we might want to jump on that Senate seat too. But I'm still sticking with Mark Lynch, marklynchforsenate.com, or it might be lynchforsenate.com, where you can volunteer and help him out, because it would be great to get an outsider into the Senate, and not one of these people who have been doing their thing in Congress, and we would really like someone different. And, we might be seeing Jim Banks out of Indiana, the senator replacing Graham on the Judiciary Committee. That would be pretty good. There's others who I might desire more, but we'll get more into that later. Okay, so I might pivot here because I kind of talked long about that. I might pivot to the DSA rollout tomorrow, because we've got it's Bastille Day, and so they're doing it specifically for tomorrow, where they plan to really, just stick it to America that they are full-blown, not just communist, but revolutionary. And it's almost right in a way that they do it now, because as Trump is about to come out with this huge expose on the election steals and do whatever kind of national emergency powers are going to be coming, as they announce who they are, the American people would probably very much welcome control over the elections. Okay, and because this is now gone over the top of what they're going to plan, and it's so anti-American that it is basically sedition, and it absolutely is an insurrection. And for them to even be able to use the Democrat Party is totally, just saying they're Democrat socialists doesn't mean they're Democrats from the Democrat Party. They shouldn't be able to even use that as their platform at all. It should be absolutely part of what the Trump team does going forward, to just say no. Basically, these people are insurrectionists and in complete sedition. This is what they want to do. Okay, tomorrow on Bastille Day, they're going to announce it. The DSA, real charmers when you see who these people are. I mean, but basically they want to eliminate the U.S. Senate. Okay, the Senate is the checks and balances, right, on a Democrat it's kind of like the electoral college of the Congress. And so they want to eliminate the Senate, and then they want to replace, literally, they want to replace the presidency and the Supreme Court with selected people from Congress. Okay, and so this is very, your worst of your so-called Democrat societies in Europe, and we know so many of the Europeans are coming in here to help make this happen for their European International. But basically, they want to have a president that's a figurehead that's selected by Congress just to be the figurehead, okay, but is controlled by Congress, so not elected. Our most important vote being for, one could argue that our local elections are the most important, big time. But as far as our big vote for our president, they want to say, nope, no more voting for the president. Congress will select them, right? Just how you see in these UK and in Europe with them building these governments. And they're just put in, like Andy Burnham, just put in there in labor. Hey, look at Maine. It's just like, hey, we're getting rid of Plattner, who, 75% of the vote, right? They're bummed that they stole that to get Plattner in. When they see that Plattner's going to lose, just nope, we're going to Biden your butt. We're going to Kamala Harris somebody into there. And that's what they want to do with the entire, just throw out the Constitution. We're going to select the president, the president puppet figurehead, and then we're going to also select the Supreme Court. It's to dissolve and do away with the present Supreme Court, and then we'll just select a new Supreme Court board by the Congress, answering only to Congress. And then they want full amnesty, of course, to all Joe Biden, Mayorkas, et al. Invaders into the USA, the purposeful migration invasion. They want blanket amnesty for all. And then they want to basically defund, to take all the money out of the Pentagon and the Department of War, so named Department of War because it is at war with the deep state. It is at war with cartel Babylon. We are at war, taking down, finishing the American Revolution. And that is the signal, that is the name change. And so that's what's going on. So much else besides. They want, of course, the free healthcare, free daycare. They want to totally have reparations, and they want to redistribute all the wealth, and then tax the rich with no. They won't say how rich you have to be for that tax to happen. They want to be able to just keep lowering that bar till they'll steal everything Mao style, okay? And it goes on and on from there. And it is just off the hook how incredible this is. And this is going to come out tomorrow. So when it comes out, I will absolutely say more about it. But it is just, unbelievably heinous, right? And I'll mention a few more things here before I go. That, California, remember when Nome was kind of, overhauled and removed for the detention centers that they had spent billions and billions on, and then they decided they want to sell. Well, now we've got California under Mark Wayne Mullen. We're now in California. We have them buying 2 detention centers in California. Okay, this is DHS buying new ones. Okay, after they're saying they're selling on the open market, we're like, are you getting rid of those 7 of the 11 bought under Nome to, sell to AI, sell to these corporations to just build them out, using our taxpayer dollars to buy them, but then just selling them. But now we're getting them buying 2 huge centers in California for $1.5 billion, $750 million a piece for these 2 detention centers in California. Now, does that signal that there's about to be a bunch of prisoners rounded up in California? Very interesting, because what the heck is going on? This is our taxpayer dollars going in $750 million per place. Yeah, it's expensive to buy property in California, but not that expensive. So we get to find out more what's going on there, and I'll link below so you can check it out. But very interesting that Nome got removed supposedly to do with some of these centers and strange deals around the money. And so what is Mark Wayne Mullins up to with this? Perhaps it is to do with something that's coming, right? And this is as we're hearing that they're now going to have teenagers, and they don't even have to be American citizens, working on the poll stations in California for the 2026 election. You have the Secretary of State sending out letters to the superintendents of schools of all the different districts saying, hey, we really want to move the poll stations to the schools. We really want to. And that's because they have all kinds of protections under the law if they have these poll stations in schools, you know, for instance, like no ICE allowed to be around the schools, this kind of thing. But then they want teenagers, and you don't even have to be an American citizen, to volunteer for these jobs when they not even legally can vote. Okay, and they have a statute in their Californian election laws where they're allowed to have a certain amount of students, and they're allowed to do everything except count the vote, basically. Okay, so that is absolutely criminal on its face for any common sense person. Absolutely ridiculous having children have anything to do with our voting system. But that's going on. I'll link that great article below. That's Natalie G. Winters who put that out. Really great information. Pretty important. And so, so let's see. I might leave it there. There's a ton more besides, a ton more that I'm gonna go to for the next video, because this is, you know, we're about to hit maximum velocity here. There's about to be a huge Rubicon cross with this election steal information coming out, and I think there'll be a huge game changer going on here that is going to really shift the narrative. And you know, we with the, you know, the FAC, the Federal Election Assistance Committee members that were all fired, right, last week, and that was a huge deal where we had, you know, based on the Slaughter decision, the Trump team was able to get rid of, well, Christy McCormick, they allowed to resign. She was the Republican, but then Donald Palmer, who had been the former commissioner of the FEC, he had already left a couple years, a few months ago. But then you had Thomas Hicks and Benjamin Hovland. They both were fired. And so it's very interesting, because we're going to see now if Trump only has to have 3, I believe, in there. So I believe there's going to be, but these are, again, our feckless, disgusting Senate and their inability. They want to push Pulte out and rush Clayton through for DNI, right? That's huge priority. But these FEC commissioner members, they have to be, of course, approved and voted on and confirmed and etc. And so what we also want our awful Senate to do is, when they recess, to actually recess. When they go for their 5-week vacation in August, unless Mike Lee has his way to get them to stay, that they actually recess. And if there was a parliamentarian being fired, then we could possibly hope that that there could be some way to push the recess to go forward. Because with a recess, an actual recess, because now when the Senate leaves for their vacations, they just have a couple senators get the awful duty of having to go in and gavel in every few days to say, oh, we're still in session. They won't take a real recess to let Trump put in his temporary appointments. And this could be done again to get 2 Republicans and a Democrat into this FEC positions. And I'm sure behind the scenes they have you know, some big things going on around this. So we'll keep covering that as it goes. And I just want to mention this on the way out, even though there's so much going on. Um, I do want to mention a great documentary. It's a mini documentary that came out, and this is basically called Belfast, A New Menace Rising. Belfast, A New Menace Rising. And this is coming out of the Gateway Pundit presenting it. You get Enrique Otaro, super involved in it, and multiple amazing activists and people, so many of us have heard of, out of Northern Ireland participating in this. And this is all about how the Protestants and Catholics of Northern Ireland are uniting in a new movement to stop the globalist destruction of their country, as well as its mechanism of the migration, Muslim invasion. And there's just huge movement going on, huge liftoff since the attempted murder of that man with Asperger's, or semi-autistic guy out there outside Belfast, murdered by the Muslim. And so they are going full bore, and this is a great mini documentary to check out. I've linked it below. Belfast, A New Menace Rising, and it gives great hope for how we can, how there needs to be the rising up of these people. We're seeing Anne Whitcomb out of Cornwall, Devon, murdered also right before the weekend. Anne Whitcomb, she huge in the Brexit movement. She's a retired MP going way back to like Thatcher era. She's very conservative and wanted England out of the UK. Wanted the UK out of the European Union. Hugely worked on that, and then she was the spokesperson for the Reform Party. Okay, she's older now, obviously, in her 70s, and she was the spokesperson for policy and to do with immigration and reform, and she was murdered in her home, violent, just murdered. And they arrested some guy who was apparently a white British national over the weekend. They interviewed him and let him go, and then re-arrested him. But there hasn't been a lot more coming out about that. But it is important to to say. And so it's very interesting when we talk about. Sorry, I cut that off too soon. Anne Whitcomb, murdered, awful. And we pray that she gets justice, and I'll keep looking at the story as it develops. It's not a ton of information, but I'll link below a story that covers to where it's gone to so far. But it's very interesting to look at that she's been murdered as this is going on. We had Rupert Lowe of the Restore Britain Party on Joe Rogan last week. That was fantastic. He was very outspoken. Restore Britain is thriving. But whatever's going on here with this attack on Anne Whitcomb in the Reform Party is very curious why they murdered her specifically, and what information. She's been around a long time, way back to Thatcher. So huge, I believe a lot will be more coming out of that. And before I do go, I just want to mention this, what Trump had to say today. He did a few things. He did the Grand Prix preview, August 3rd, 200,000 tickets, free tickets available. You just have to sign up through, that, whatever it is it the America 250 site, I believe. You have to sign up to get a ticket. We can go, and it's free. It's going to be a Grand Prix around DC. I mean, it's quite amazing. Even though Trump, since the NATO visit, has created huge scaffolding all around the door of the White House. There, if he can't get the bunker for out of the ballroom that he's been needing to protect himself from what's coming, and to have operations continue in light of really intense things going down. And our feckless, disgusting Senate holding that up. And Thune looking so nervous when he's talking about Graham's death today. So nervous when he's up there on the Fox News today, just kind of sweating some bullets, looking like his tan and his vacation was just draining out of him, right, with this news of Graham being dead. But basically, Trump has put scaffolding up and is doing a massive reinforcement of the entryways into the White House. And they're talking about now through the elections, through whatever's coming, hugely fencing off Lafferty Park, just huge security measures. Because hey, what's like 4 or 5 times where you're almost killed, right? And so yes, protections. How about we just get that bunker done? But he also, so he did the Grand Prix thing, and he didn't look comfortable there. Not to mention just tons going on, and Trump was preoccupied, and he's like, "Yay, Grand Prix! It's going to be awesome." But then he's kind of standing back and looking around. He did not feel comfortable. And then later he did an executive order again with Mike Lee out of Utah. Fantastic. Mike Lee to lead the Senate. That's where I'm at, full stop. But they passed executive orders in the White House today, basically there's about 3 million acres that Barack Obama stole, making them national monuments, where the people of Utah can't use this land, supposedly for the Native Americans, but basically this land has been belonging to the people in Utah for all this long time. And basically Trump reversed that in these executive orders today. And so those national monuments were brought down to the right size, which what Mike Lee was arguing is the actual law, that if you're going to make a national monument, it can be, so many thousands of acres, but you can't just say, hey, 3 million acres, here's a new national monument. It's just not even legal. And so at that point, during this part of the day, after Trump signed those orders, he said to MSN Now, and this is MSNBC, MS Now, that basically who they are the ones that put out these leaked reports of declassified election documents. The White House task force is going to come up and lie to you about that Trump is a liar about the stolen election 2020. Just full on, like they're just saying whatever they want. They're just going for war, right? And Trump came out and said, "Oh, the MSM Now, yeah, that is the fake news media." And he said, in the reporting on the Iran war and more, they basically report like they want the USA to lose, and saying, this is the fake news media. And he said, and it's treasonous in my opinion. He said it's treasonous in my opinion. And so very interesting in a setup here with the reporting to do. I mean, Iran, yes, constantly the barrage of Trump's stupid. He keeps saying there'll be no war. Now there's a war. Just all this baloney that they keep putting out. It sounds like a lot of right media, these days too. But basically, they also got this leaked information, and I think this is probably some kind of. It sounds to me like they're going to catch these leakers. It was probably a setup, is in my guesstimation, in my, how I think about stuff, that MS Now got this report to do with this election task force operation and what's going to be said by Trump on Thursday night in his address to the nation, to try to preempt and, shape and sculpt a narrative to all of the people that still watch those dying channels. And so very interesting to call that out by Trump. I think it was very purposeful, the whole thing. And so I'm going to leave it there. Okay, we are, at this period in time where I just get to say thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found some of this interesting or new information, analysis helped. And if so, and you want to support the channel, You Are Free TV, there's ways to do so below. It would be so appreciated. Total shoestring budget here that keeps this able to operate. So it would be so appreciated. And then, of course, my fantastic sponsor, which is c60evo.com/YAFTV. And use the code YAFTV for 10% off. And this is, of course, the incredible ESS60 molecule that that basically is, it gets into your mitochondria and it cleans all the garbage out. And what it does is it basically works through the glutathione, your melatonin, and it goes into all your mitochondria, all your trillions of cells. It literally stays in your body for over a week, just getting the garbage out of your cells with your master hormones. And it goes through the blood-brain barrier into your neurons, doing the same thing, cleaning up your brain. And it's bought up, hugely by big C clinics that are working with people who are doing maybe both allopathic and natural medicine. There's been studies that have proven recently that the ESS60 molecule, this exact same purest form of carbon-60, is it's able to protect healthy cells as well as have sick cells and cancerous cells die off and go away. And so incredible stuff here for the central nervous system and those kind of cellular everything, all of our degenerative diseases come from our cells being unhealthy and then turning against themselves, right? And what this does is correct that. And all health comes from cellular health. And so central nervous system disorders, everything, all the turbo stuff after the jabs, this is just an incredible, incredible resource. Plus, it gives you a good mood, elevated focus and thinking. It fights inflammation for workouts, but just for all of those autoimmune related ailments of pain in the body, all the inflammation, and then just for working out or endurance or recovery from using your muscles during the day. So it's great for what they call inflammaging, right? Where it really helps your body to, through helping your DNA to stay healthy, your cells to stay healthy. It basically is the antithesis of the processes that degrade the body over time with aging. So thanks for letting me plug on that. They help me, so I appreciate them. They help me through, if you want to buy their product, that's the only way they help me, which is fantastic. And people who have donated to the channel automatically get 15% off. So if you're a monthly person who supports You Are Free TV, you get 15% off and a different code and link sent to you. And I give away 2 bottles, randomly selected 2 people who support the channel every month of the capsules. And I'm so glad to do so. And you can request liquids if you desire, if you become the winner. So thanks so much for watching. It's so appreciated. And this is a huge week. There's going to be so much happening all week, and then we get Trump's address to the nation Thursday night. So, here we go. Yeah, it's revving up, and we're in the revolutionary, period here in July, and it's going to be full bore, full on through the midterm. So, you have to get active, make the phone calls, and certainly volunteer in your local area to push the people you need in locally into your local governments, into your midterm elections with your states and national representatives. So let's get busy. You are free, and I will see you next time.